ordinances here are outdated from the 1970s compared to the other cities around Wisconsin. I highly recommend you guys to look at the other cities such as Stevens Point, Green, I can't remember that, but Stevens Point, Greenfield, thank you. Greenfield, such as Greenfield, Stevens Point, and Fond du Lac. I recommend you guys to look at all those guys' ordinances for any type of tree conversion, saving. I have some of the ordinance numbers down if you guys want to know what ordinances I would love you guys to definitely look at and compare. And that is ordinances 12.56.010, 12.56140, and 12.56150. Now, you may ask, what is the purpose of even saving trees? I'm going to give you some reasons why. It can actually save $18 million in budget if you actually save the trees. It can provide shade for people while they're walking. Who wants to walk in the hot sun, especially during the weather's heating up? It's going to heat up for the next few years. We're going to need shade to walk. And it can also help people's mental health. That's all.
Thank you. Jamie, do you want to comment on that? I mean, we had quite the discussion last month when John Cahan was here and Alan Wesolowski regarding the trees. Did you want to comment on what perhaps he should go back and read what we had in our minutes?
Well, you can watch the video from the last meeting, but we can look at these ordinance too, but typically during public comment, we don't usually respond. We'll take these, we'll take a look at them, and if we feel there needs to come back to the committee, we'll do that at a later meeting.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And with that, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from, oh, I'm sorry.
Somebody else speak?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
Sure.
Open mic? Okay. I apologize. I can't see very well, so I have reading glasses. I have a prosthetic right. My name is Steve Roberts, 206 East Campus Drive. I have a prosthetic right eye and a macular pucker in the left, so I can see some of the stuff here, but I don't think that's Mr. Gisselman. That's Tom Killian?
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know who everybody is here. May I, would you introduce yourselves?
Carol Lukens, I'm
Carol
Alder for
Lukens,
District 1.
okay.
Jamie Polly, Parks and Recreation Director.
Jamie?
Dawn Herbst, Alderperson, District 9.
Don?
Lou Larson, Alderperson, District 10.
Okay.
Sarah Watson, Alderperson, District 8.
Okay. I'm here in regards to a specific agenda item tonight, so I don't know if I would need to wait until that comes up. It is item 6D, and that's the easement for the Schofield Park. But I would like to reserve time to speak if WPS is making a presentation or if they have something that they are presenting to you. I read the meeting minutes that they were supposed to get something to you by this meeting, so the meeting agenda packet. I don't know if they've gotten that to you yet or not.
No, this is just an informational item, so we are not actually discussing it. So if you have comments, you can say those at that time. But
When you reach
No.
item 6D?
no, right, at the moment. You can say it now because it's just an informational item, so the committee won't be discussing it.
Okay. Well, Lou Larson was at the SISM committee meeting when Lisa Rasmussen, my city council person, made the motion to deny the easement. The reason being is that WPS has been very underhanded with the way they have treated the people on Campus Drive. The original plan for the relocation of this 46,000 volt line was to go from the east side of Marathon Electric all the way out Burrick to Decatur, turn left at Decatur, and go past the entrance to Minnesota Mining. And if Chad Hankey was here, he'd know exactly what I'm talking about. Right at the intersection of 4th and Decatur is where 3M is, and to the west of that is the Northsaw substation. My home was the one that was struck by the wires and burned and had to be taken down, May 22nd, 2019. That is why they're relocating the wires. As early as August of 20, they being Kelly Zagzebski, went to Lisa Rasmussen's office at State Farm and told her the best route was to go all the way out Burrick to Decatur and take a hard left at Decatur and go to the North-South substation, because right now the lines traverse several properties. Unfortunately, mine was the one that burned, and we had to tear it down and rebuild. So initially, for a year, they were telling Lisa, this is the way it's going to be. They came out with their original plan July 14th. Kelly walked up and down Burrick Avenue and sold that plan to the residents out there. Within 3 weeks, that mailing went out July 14th. I have all of these email streams. If anybody wants to see any of the detail, I have all of this information. So the mailing went out July 14th. Kelly was around the 22nd, 23rd, 24th of July last year, selling the plan. And all of a sudden, less than 3 weeks later, she and Eric Lindman are called to City Hall for a meeting with the project manager, Jason Linsmeyer, and Kelly Zagzebski. And they said to Eric and Lisa, we would like to float another idea. And Lisa said, what might that be? And they said, we want to come down Campus Drive. She threw her hands up and she says, are you kidding me? You want to re-victimize the man who lost his home? He already lost one home to those wires, and he built as far back on his lot as he had to satisfy WPS. We have a lot that's 245 feet deep, so we had to move the new home all the way back to the north end of that property. It butts right up against the Monk rental apartment buildings out there. If you're familiar with the Monk Garden, all of the Monk apartments are out there. So we were dictated to by WPS out of Green Bay where to build the home, which is what we did. And in August of 20, when Lisa told me this news that they were going to relocate those wires, I said, well, that's great. Because the week after the fire, I was out there with Don Bolin from WPS and Jim Richter from Asplin Tree Cutting. And Jim looks at Don and he says, when in the heck are you ever going to move these wires? Don Bolin says, well, you know, Jim, we've talked about this for 15 years. It'll probably be another 15 years. That was May 29th of 19. Well, lo and behold, a year later, August of 20, Kelly shows up at Lisa's office, made an appointment, told her we got some good news. We're going to move those wires. You know, one of your constituents lost his home to the lines. They fell in a storm, started our sunroom on fire at 2:30 in the morning, and we got out by the skin of our teeth. So the home was declared a total loss. It had to be torn down, and that was our home for 33 1/3 years. So I was ecstatic when I got the news that, hey, they're going to go from Marathon Electric. They're going to move it out from over all the other homes because they don't want this to happen again. So bless them for that. But then they were going to go north on Burrick all the way to Decatur. And again, July 14th, the mailing goes out. On August 5th, Eric and Lisa are called to City Hall. Okay, we want to come down campus. What's the reason? Well, we've got other options. We're going to look at some other options. What they failed to tell them at that time was that the residents in the village of Maine, north of Campus Drive, those residents signed a petition to stop those wires from coming out there. Now, we got our own petition together, but we didn't find out about this until WPS blindsided us in November. They kept telling Lisa between August and November that they were working on it. They had not finalized the plan. They weren't sure they were going to turn on campus. All of a sudden, she gets an email on November 1st saying, hey, we've decided to make a small change. Significant, though, for the Campus Drive residents. We have many more homes on Campus Drive than north of campus on Burrick. We have an assisted living center called Our House. We have a dementia center run by Our House, and we have the Marywood Nursing Home. Those properties are against this, as am I, as are all of the neighbors. Now, we got our own petition together in the dark of night. The petitioners north of Campus Drive in the village of Maine on Burrick and the side streets, they had the advantage of going around and getting petitions signed during the summer, July 14th to August 5th. So then when they found out that I got involved, they said, oh, we better do something here because I have worked with Lisa on various projects out there. So they got together a frequently asked questions page, brought two people up from Milwaukee to walk that around. Not that they're going to change it, not that they're going to listen to us, not that they're going to abide by our petition, but that in fact, they are going to ram it down our throats. They were going to ram it down our throats with a November 5th mailing. I have the proof of it from the city's emails. They were going to ram it down the throats of Campus Drive with no input. So when they knew, I'm an outspoken person out there. Lisa Rasmussen will tell you next week at the city council meeting, I've worked with her for 14 years. The first project she and I worked on was back in '08 when she was brand new to this city council. And they don't want to mess with me because they know what's going on. My insurance company is suing them, and they're going after them for the loss of my home. So they don't want to mess with me. So they wouldn't talk to me. They wouldn't do anything, wouldn't listen to me. Then under the guise of COVID, they said, oh, well, we're going to hold some informational meetings at the Tech. They did that in December. They did it 9 days before Christmas and 4 days before Christmas. Well, who's going to show up at Christmas at the Tech? And they said they could only meet one-on-one, and that was just to stack the deck in their favor. Because I had attended a meeting there with Tom Killian, Tom, who's our congressman?
Tom Tiffany.
Tom Tiffany had a meeting there in room N100 or whatever number it is. There were over 75 people there. So they were stacking the deck. They wanted people to come in one-on-one, and in a particular email from Ms. Zagzebski to Lisa, they didn't want a loudmouth like myself to be there because they were afraid I would take control of the meeting. But these are the facts. They gave us no chance to protest this, and they even threw our petition in file 13. I've done my research. I know who lives north of campus. I did my research on the value of the homes. I did my research on who possibly signed that petition. When I took Jason Linsmeyer to task on November 11th of last year.
Steve, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to have you kind of wind it up because we've got quite an agenda that we need to get to as well.
All right. So anyway, long story short, as Lisa said, Lou, correct me if I'm wrong, she told you the underhanded stuff they've been pulling on the residents of Campus Drive. And you voted with Lisa, and I forget who else voted with Lisa. You, Lisa, and the third person voted that easement down. And
The vote was 4-1.
4-1. Okay, I thought there was somebody absent.
4 against 1, 1-4.
I thought somebody was absent. I thought there were 3 votes for it and one.
We have to
three
remember, this is
votes against
strictly a
it.
I don't
comment
believe so, yes.
section.
But we'll get to that when we talk about it.
Okay.
This is
In the
not the time or
agenda.
place. Thank you.
All right, well, I didn't know if this was the time or place because I saw it was on your agenda. And at the top of your agenda page, it says, all items may be acted upon. So at the advice of my counsel, an attorney here in town, he told me to show up this afternoon and tell you the story, which Lou had known a little bit about via Lisa, and now you know much more. They've been very underhanded with the people of Campus Drive. Last thing I'll say is, I want them to change their call letters from WPS to WSS, the We Say So company. I did my research. There's a judge that lives on Bayshore Drive, and there are 5 homes out there that are valued nearly $500,000. So their new tagline is, when WPS comes a knocking, power and money do the talking. And I'll end with that, because that's what I truly believe. They're trying to find a narrative to fit their change from their original plan that they had in place for a year, and the narrative they found is there's too much rock. Their North Saw substation is built on that rock out there by 3M. That is pure, unadulterated BS.
Thank you, Steve. We have to move on. Next on the agenda, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from our August 1st Park and Recreation meeting. I have a first from motion made by Sarah Watson. I'm looking for a second by Alder Killian. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye as well. Opposed? Motion passed. At this point, I'm going to turn the discussion over to Jamie, and she's going to start with a possible action accepting the proposal from, is it Spone Ranch?
Yep, Spawn Ranch.
Spone Ranch to design the Wausau Skate Park.
Yes, thank you. Take my microphone. So the city council approved $225,000 of ARPA money to be used to replace the skate park. And to be able to do this, we have to do it in 2 phases. We have to hire a design firm, which is the services RFP, and then we'll have to go out to competitive bid for the actual construction of the skate park. So we did go out for RFP for this, and we opened those proposals at the Board of Public Works on August 16th. We had 4 qualifications within that proposal that we were going to be weighing these proposals against. We received 3 proposals, and we originally had thought we could do a design build on this because that is typically the nature of a skate park, where many of these companies design it and they have their own concrete forms and their own things where they can build it. Wisconsin is a state that doesn't allow cities to do design build unless you're a school district, so we had to go back out for RFP. But 2 of the proposals that we received were from that first solicitation, and then what I did was reached out to both of those companies to say, because I did not look at them ahead of time, but after opening them, I saw that they had their design services separated from their construction services, so I asked them, are you interested in just the design, or just the construction, or would you like to withdraw? But we used them since they were submitted and be closed ahead of time. The one that I put in your packet, kind of the spreadsheet of the companies, we had Evergreen Skate Parks, Grindline Skate Parks out of Oregon, Spawn Ranch out of California. Evergreen is also out of California. Evergreen, it did not respond to that. I did get an email from them just asking, basically, so this is no longer design build, and I responded with no, based on our laws, blah, blah. I never got any response back. So although they were significantly less costly, I don't have any confirmation from them that they're interested in our project if it's not a design build. So looking at both Grindline and Spawn Ranch, very reputable companies that know their skate parks, have extensive experience with skate parks. I have their proposals here. We'll put they'll be part of the package that goes in our finance files where we have to keep these, but if anyone's interested in looking at their proposals, I do have them here. I did go through them, looked at their past history, their proposal of how they would do the project, as well as their cost. As you can see, they're very close in cost. So that was a very minor, 1 point difference, I guess, when we give them that Spawn Ranch was a little bit cheaper. But the one thing that I really liked about Spawn Ranch that put them above Grindline, and I have talked to the Grindline Skate Park about this as well, is their community outreach portion of their proposal, in that, this skate park is going to be built for the users, by the users. We have to have them as part of this project. We cannot build a skate park that can't be skated, can't be used by the people that know the business. So it is really important that we have them as part of this design process. So a couple of the things that they are going to do in their proposal is they are going to develop a Facebook page that gets people where they can see events that are happening, see meetings that are happening, get feedback on there, be able to post ideas there, and then they're going to have multiple public meetings. They're going to have one public meeting in the beginning to look at preliminary design and feedback and ideas, and then they're going to go back and do some designs, and then they're going to come back for a second public meeting where the users can actually look at their concept plans and provide feedback and choose alternate designs or pick and choose different pieces before they do their final design. Grindline had that as well, but they only had one public meeting. They didn't have any other additional public input opportunities other than one meeting, and then the rest would be meetings with staff or a small group that we put together. So that is my basis of recommending Spawn Ranch. I did actually also work with Spawn Ranch while I was in Minnesota. I know that their reputation, I know their style, I know that their public input that they had there, they know my expectations. But like I said, I talked to both companies after this process very in depth to make sure I was making the right recommendation to the Parks Committee. And so I feel confident with either company, really, but also knowing that our designer cannot bid on the construction I know that both of them are interested in the construction side of it too, if they don't get the design. So there will be an opportunity to have the other company or the other companies bid on the construction when we go out for bid on that as well. So with proposals, we don't need to take the low bid, although I am recommending the lower cost one. With construction, we will have to take the low bid when we do open those bids. So with that, I am recommending Spawn Ranch to do the design of our skate park and to begin as we can get an agreement in place with hopeful that we can get the skate park designed this year and be able to start or bid the construction early in 2023 so that whoever we have as our construction company can begin the construction as soon as the ground thaws and we can get the new skate park in sometime mid 2023.
Jamie, I have a question. When we move ahead with this skate park, will we have a representative here from Spawn to talk about it and also invite members of the community here?
Yes.
As well?
Yes.
Because I know that what they want to do is they want to make sure that this skate park is not only good for the younger generation, but the older people, so to speak, as well, to be able to use it and what they want in the skate park. So that will be great then to have them here, because there'll be
Yes.
questions, I'm sure.
Yep, they will come on site. They'll do maybe a couple virtual meetings too, but they will come on site and meet with us. I know they're working in the Midwest on other skate parks as well. And we are also going to be putting together kind of a focus group. So I've been working with John, who owns the skateboard company, Central Board Shop downtown here. I'm very, very involved and connected with the skating community, young to seasoned skaters, and has an idea of people that he thinks would be very beneficial to become part of this focus group. But then we'll open up those public meetings to anybody who wants to come too. But we will definitely get the users at the table at most of the meetings.
At this point, do we need a motion?
Yes. Because it
Okay,
needs to go to city council for approval.
okay.
I will make the motion. Pardon me, I'll make the motion that we go with Jamie Polly's recommendation of the company.
Okay, and I'm looking for a second for that motion. Motion by Alder Killian, and all in favor?
Madam
I'm
Chair,
sorry.
may
Yes.
I just got a question and
Sure.
some comments beforehand, if possible. I had a question about the fee structure. It said there would be a not to exceed total fee in the proposal. I didn't see any financials in this. I may have, it's possible I overlooked them in the packet. What is the not to exceed on the design component?
It's in that spreadsheet. It's the 32,500.
32,500.
Yes, it's in the.
Ah, I see it now, yes, thank you. And then I'd also like to say that I think that this approach to anything government involved, where there's public funds, where you have a participation process of stakeholders, it's very positive. I would say that this should really be replicated on any project moving forward, using public funds when there are users or stakeholders involved. So I think that is a positive element of this, and it could be replicated in the future. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Lou Larson to accept the proposal from Spoon Ranch and have a second from Tom Killian. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Aye as well. Opposed? Motion has passed.
Thank you. We'll put that on the council agenda for the next meeting.
And next, we have discussion and possible action reviewing the 2023 preliminary budget and supplemental budget request.
Yes, so we're still working on our actual budget, because the county is a little bit behind when it comes to the personnel costs, and the county is undergoing a class compensation study as we speak, but we do have, we have all the information now, we're plugging those in, we're finalizing, so I couldn't give you an actual, where I am actually at with the budget at the moment, but giving you, as far as the budget goes, just giving you the assurance that as we bring this forward, and we'll I'm meeting with Mary Ann for our budget meeting on Friday, where we'll get some further direction as to kind of where we're at. But we did go ahead and we proposed a budget that only minimally increases the services or the line items that just to do our service. So anything where cost of supplies was increased. But we also reduced in many areas too, where we saw on past years, we hadn't quite met that budget. So we actually ended up, and we increased revenue to make it more realistic to what our actual revenue is. We reduced some areas where our revenue's been low, but increased where they've been high. So actually, where we're at today is our revenue increases and our expenditure decreases outweigh those expenditure increases that are non-personnel. So going into a non-personnel, with non-personnel in that budget, going into that, we had a reduction to our budget. Like I said, these numbers are constantly changing because we just got insurance numbers in, and we'll have this for Mary Ann on Friday. But we were sitting at a pretty good submission for personnel, for non-personnel budget, as far as increasing revenues and decreasing expenses, to go in with a neutral or actually a reduced non-personnel budget. Our personnel expenses will go up, knowing that the county is doing a class comp study. Just like if I was a city department, my personnel expenses would be going up because the city council approved a cost of living increase as of January 1. So same thing is going to be for the county. Our wages are going to change and they will go up. So when we get that all together, that will be presented to Mary Ann on Friday, and we'll be able to see exactly what that impact is, and if we have to look at our expenditures any further, she'll give us that direction. But then the other part of the budget that was required of us is that anything that was going to enhance services or additional requests was supposed to be presented as supplemental requests for the budget. So we have 4 that we're putting forward, and they're usually by line item of what the topic is in the budget. So we actually have 2 of them for other professional services. And then we have one that's called sundry services, which is our emerald ash borer, and then I forget the topic of the increased tree planting, but that's what I wanted to present to you here tonight, because these will be presented as part of the budget. They'll be something the city council votes on separately after the entire budgets are in of operating and personnel expenses. Then Mary Ann will say, you have X amount of money and we can add these many things to the budget, or this is the direction that the council will have. So in putting these forward, I did include them in your packet. They have been presented to Mary Ann already. They will be part of the budget. So the first one I'll go through is our first other professional services request. This is regular, really regular maintenance, and is just, but something that because of the costs, I felt I should include a supplemental request for, rather than just increasing our line item in the budget. But our pools now are 5, 6 plus years old, and our pumps are requiring maintenance. We've got past that new period where we didn't have a lot of maintenance. So we do need to probably look at servicing 1 pump per year. So this is not all 3 pumps. This is 1 pump per year, and we'll have them on a rotating schedule at about $5,200 when we got a quote from the companies that help us do it. And then the non-ash tree removals are other removals that have to be taken, such as hazardous trees, storm damage. That's just the cost. We currently, within our budget, let's say, it all depends on the cost of services, but within our budget, we can typically remove, let's say, 250 trees. We got an updated cost from some of our contractors, and this is for, those trees that we can't get to with our own staff. We do have a small contract for. Their cost per caliper inch is going up. So this $3,000 we're asking as an addition is really based on the cost of services increase. We will remove as many trees as we have a budget for. So if this is not approved, then we will just remove less trees for what our budget does. The $3,000, we figure we can keep removing about the same amount of trees we've been removing at the increased cost of the service. Do you want me to go through each one?
No, it's all in our packet, I
Okay.
believe.
I do want to touch on a couple of the other ones, just briefly. The emerald ash borer one is an important one, but it's a large item. One, it's one that has been presented to city council in past years because in 2012 and in 2016, again, the city council approved an emerald ash borer plan, which they knew emerald ash borer was coming. It is here significantly. It's very predominant on the northeast third of the city is where we spent a lot of time this year. We did a lot of treatment there this year as well as removal. We'll also have 2 new conformations, one on Cherry Street and one on Pine Ridge Boulevard in other areas of the city. So we had a 7-year plan. I think last year, the year before, the Parks Committee didn't want to recommend to increase the budget, so we moved that plan out to a 12 to 15-year plan, which is fine, and hoping that the emerald ash borer continues to be here slowly. But if it becomes infested in an area and we start to see, every ash tree in a block completely dead and hazardous, we're going to have to come for emergency funds from the city council because we have to take care of those trees. So this addition is really to add to that budget so we can stay on that plan of even that 12 to 15-year plan with the number of treatment, removal, and replacements. That includes planting, removing, and treating the trees as per the plan that was included. So if we continue to keep our budget to where it is, then we, as I said, we just do what we can do with that budget. And we hope with emerald ash borer that it will take years before we have a major area that's standing dead that we have to immediately respond to.
Alders, do you have any questions or comments for Jamie? Do we need a motion for this, Jamie, to go to council?
I think it would be good to have recommendations to council. You're going to see them again, but.
Alder
I have a
Wilkins?
question. This isn't included in here, so, but I'm just going to ask, I have received quite a few complaints or requests or whatever for the pools. I know that's not part of this, but for the pools to stay open a week or 2 later, like for next year. I don't know when that's appropriate or where it's appropriate to bring that up. But, and I understand, there's staffing and that, but,
Well,
just wondering.
Yeah, so that was a supplemental request last year to the Parks Committee and the City Council for an additional $12,000. That was to keep one pool open a week or 2 longer, barring that we had staffing, because staffing is an issue. The pools close the same time this year as they have every year that they've been open. So it's not new. We didn't close any earlier than we have in the past. It's always been this time. And it's really based on the fact that we operate our pools with college students and high school students, and school goes back into session and they get ready for school, and we don't have staffing to keep it. Our pools can't be run with 5 guards. We need 10 guards to operate a pool safely and keep it open. If we only had 1 pool in the city, it might be a little bit easier, but we have 3 pools and it's impossible to keep them open. But we did have a supplemental last year that asked for the $12,000 additional funding to give like incentives to lifeguards to stay that extra week plus the extra cost of the chemicals, and the city council chose not to approve that last year. I have the supplemental from last year. I could submit again if the Parks Committee would want me to and put that back in there. And that would be a discussion that city council could have, but that was the direction we received last year.
Alder Wilkins?
I should point out that more than not of the, requests and complaints I receive were from families that purchase like the season pass. So I just wanted to share that information and see if, I don't know if there's anything else, and I know I had emailed you about it, but I just thought I would bring that up because it was, I don't know if anyone else heard from residents, but I did. So.
I just want to touch on one more too. The very last one in our packet is the invasive species treatment. This is actually to bring back the goats again next year. We had been funding the goats $3,700 out of a capital improvement project that was approved for the island. The city council has since taken the remaining funds that we've had in there and allocated them to get the mill building redesigned on the South Riverfront. And so we don't know what funds are going to be left in that yet. There may be some to fund them for next year, but this is to fund them, and possibly, we really think they need to come back twice a year. And then we've had, talking with Alder Lukens as well, we've had other requests in other areas of the cities where they may be beneficial. So this is actually, the 12,000 would be to bring them 2 to 3 times per year, but then also have some funding for other treatment options if the goats can't come, or there's like additional mowing needed with additional, equipment rental and stuff like that. So that is the additional.
Jamie, are the goats still going to be here until in the August, September sometime yet?
No, right now we've only had them planned for once
Once,
in the year.
okay.
Mhm.
Very good. Alder Lukens?
I just have one other question about that. So when the goats come, then is it possible, like, are they treated at all after that, or no? Are the goats just come and like mow it down? I've just wondered about that. I don't know the protocol, how that works.
The goat, and what we've done the last year and this, well, we haven't done anything this year yet, but last year is we had cut them all down. We had a brush hog that we went through and we cut down all the invasives as we could get to on the island before they came, and then they let it grow back. And then the goats were here and we didn't do any treatment after that. We chose not to do a cutting last year because we wanted to see, the larger they are, the more that the goats will eat. And we wanted to see how they would do this year. In assessing it, we do need to do another method. So doing another mowing at the end of this year would probably be beneficial so that it doesn't get too overgrown. Because they did do, I got an update from John, is that the feeding did go very well. They ate more of the tansies than expected. That's another invasive that was out there. But everything is growing back very heavily. Being that we graze late to midsummer, they did help stress the plants, but going forward, it is recommended that 2 grazings per year would be best and have better control. But also we're going to look at doing one more cutting or some sort of thinning in between there so we can help. They're going to keep coming back, so the more that we can stress them, then hopefully we can reduce their growth at a faster rate.
Very good. And Alder Killian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the invasive species subject, I think, and I know Alder Lukens has received some similar feedback as I have from at least one arborist, and I think we're dealing with quite an issue in the city that has exponential potential in terms of the growth of some of these species and their migration over time. So as we look at funding to address invasive species in the future, I feel like we maybe need to get a little more aggressive and perhaps diversify our approach to how we deal with invasive species. I fear that if we do not, in 2 years, we're going to need an army of goats all over the city. And so, I do feel like we may need a portfolio of options and to really get serious about invasive species, because I've seen, I wouldn't normally know anything about this topic, but an arborist had taken me around parts of the city and things like Japanese knotweed and so forth. It feels like if we don't really have an eyes open, realistic approach to these species, we're going to be in big trouble in a few years. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Jamie?
Is any public comment allowed at this point?
That's up to you as chair.
I promise it will be less than a minute.
That would be fine. I'll take the 1 minute, please.
Okay. Interesting what Tom said. We own a property up north on a lake, and we have an invasive species up there called Eurasian water milfoil. And if it gets a hold, our lake will become dead. Of all places, I'm on a lake called Found Lake, and right next to us is Lost Lake. Well, Lost Lake has lost its battle to Eurasian water milfoil. So I know about invasive species a little bit, enough to be dangerous. But yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Please do as much as you can to stop this invasive species, because we have a very active lake association on Found Lake, and we have taken care of every plant we have found. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jamie, I'm going to let you talk on some educational items.
Well, if we could get a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That if you approve or support these supplementals moving forward, if you wanted to add that we include the pool one back in, I need that direction as well. But it would be helpful just to know that when it goes to the finance committee and back to the city council, that you've seen these and you can speak to them. Or
Okay, well, I'm looking for a motion then to approve of the discussion and possible action reviewing the preliminary budget and the supplemental budget requests, and also perhaps putting the pools back into the agenda for the city council in the future. Do I have a motion? Or, I mean, do I have I lost my train of thought.
yeah, motion.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a first for the motion? Let's put it that way. Okay. Perhaps I didn't word this correctly. We hear that we do not want to send this to council. Alder Lukens.
So I would make a motion to approve. Let me see, I'm trying to go back here.
Or to recommend.
To recommend, I'm just trying to go back in the agenda. To recommend would it be the 2023 preliminary budget and supplemental budget requests
Yes.
as submitted
Yes.
by Director Polly? I guess as far as the pool, the question I raised with staff, that I guess that may need more information. I don't feel like I don't know what's all involved, so I don't know that I'm ready to make a motion on that, if that helps.
Okay, we have a motion by Alder Lukens. Do I have a second? Am I allowed to second it?
You can, yeah.
I-
Sarah.
A second by Alder Watson. Thank you. All in favor? Say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Aye as well. So we have 4 and 1 opposed.
Yeah, is there a particular one that you didn't? Because we could have done them individually too.
Yes, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, and I may be, the 12K on invasive, was that just for goats, or do we have the ability to apply that to a diverse approach so that we can start actually realistically addressing the problem?
It's for both. I wrote in there that it's for the option for goats as well as other treatment options that we feel are necessarily, like we won't use chemicals on the island, but we may use more mowers or staff time or stuff like that. So it is for different options, yes.
And would it just be for the island?
No, well, part of it is to bring them back for the island, but then there was additional, in the write-up, it was that there's been requests for additional locations. So we don't have those exactly pinpointed out, but when talked with Alder Lukens, the Memorial Park Hill is one option that we've had requests for. Now, we have to do a little bit more research on there because of the steepness and whether goats would work there or whether a different option would work there because it is so steep, but that is a pretty heavily area with some invasive species. We've got Isle of the Ferns as well. So yes, it's not just the island.
Okay, yeah, and I certainly don't want to get anybody's goat, so to speak, but I think they need to be, because this is an issue that it's more than just an aesthetic concern. It actually, some of these species, in my understanding, they have the ability to cause property damage to foundations and so forth, some of them. So I feel like this is a case due to the potential serious outcomes of not addressing this effectively. We should probably do an inventory of the city so that when the approach is implemented, we don't see in one area there's a disproportionate addressing and nothing's done about a certain other area of the city. I think this needs to be done perhaps in a systematic, equitable way so that one neighborhood doesn't just turn into a jungle of knotweed while others are actually addressed.
Yeah, so this supplemental would be just for this next year is what we do, but I think that what you're saying is a good idea. So I think as we work to prepare for, I guess it would be 2024's budget, because invasive species is something that we do need to address, we do have to have a better handle on where they all are. You know, we know the island, that's been a direction of the committee in the past to clean it up, to make it usable for and safe for people. We know of some other areas, basically our islands, which is good that they're islands because then they're not affecting property values, but there are some areas where we do have. So I think as we prepare a better budget number for that going forward, that's something I'll have my staff do over the next year of getting that inventory. So this one would just be, I guess, to continue with treatment, whether it's the goats or other treatment on the island and in a few other areas. 12,000 isn't going to go a long way. But to keep it moving for 2023.
Thank you.
So at this point, we are, Alder Lukens.
Am I allowed to ask one other question? Sorry. And a comment. So my concern is for the city. I agree with Alder Killian, because in visiting a number of parks, excuse me, buckthorn is all over. It's throughout the state. I know that Japanese knotweed is in District 1. I'm sure it's in other districts. And, it's on private properties. And I guess one thing that I also at some point would like to inquire about or discuss is policy. Because I know that there are other municipalities that have policies, have ordinances, for invasive species. So, if it's on public property, that's one thing, but if it's on private property, and like I said, it's all over. People, it's in yards, and I'm sure people don't even realize. And with, as things continue to change with our weather, it does impact. So, anyway, I just wanted to add that, and I very much do agree with you, so that I don't think it's just a District 1 issue.
Yeah,
So,
and we do have an ordinance in
Thank you.
place. We do have an ordinance in place for invasive species.
And I'm just going to go back to Carol Lukens, Alder Lukens' motion that was second, I believe, by Alder Watson. From what I understand, we still are standing at a 4-1 vote. And so motion has passed. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And I'm going to turn it back to Jamie regarding educational items.
Okay, just a few educational items here for an update for the committee. Wausau Woodchucks wanted to let you know that we met with Mark McDonald of the Wausau Woodchucks. We always do an end of the season review and recap. They ended their season really well with making the playoffs. They didn't end up going to the championship game, but they gave it a good run. Then we always do a walkthrough of the facility too, of things to address over the winter and stuff like that. One of the things I guess I don't have in here that is going to be happening is that video board that the city council last year in our budget, or CIP budget, we did approve $50,000 to go towards their video board. The video board has been ordered and it will be installed in the spring. The Woodchucks are paying for 90% of the cost. That $50,000 is probably 10% of the cost. So they are doing that. We'll be taking down the big board over the winter here in the fall here to get it ready for that scoreboard. But one of the things that you may be seeing a press release on later this fall coming from the Northwoods League is this endeavor to look into adding a softball league to the Woodchucks baseball league. Or not Woodchucks, to the Northwoods baseball league. So they have been talking with all of the Northwoods teams of whether or not this is something that they would sign on for and that they would accommodate within their facilities. The Woodchucks owner is very supportive of this at this time and thinks it would be a good thing to add. We do have the ability to accommodate it. It will take some unique scheduling ideas to accommodate the softball. We would not displace any of the current users to allow this, so they would be scheduled when the facility isn't currently scheduled. But the big conversation with it would be is that the grass infield would need to be turned to synthetic turf infield to be able to play softball on it. Right now you can't play softball on a grass infield with a mound. And then a second clubhouse would be needed. There is some options with some local buildings around there that the Woodchucks could purchase and turn it into a second clubhouse. We do need to do some work on the current clubhouse, but it's not big enough to accommodate 2 teams, and you can't mix men and women, so.
Alder Larson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious as to, with all the talk about the unsafeness of synthetic turf, why we would have to remove the natural grass and put synthetic turf in for the softball, since there's so much going on out there that's saying that synthetic turf is more and more hazardous to athletes playing on.
Well, I can't speak exactly to which type of synthetic turf they're going to use, but it would be one that, I mean, there's a lot of, they're going in all over, and there are safe ones and there are not safe ones, so I can't speak to that. But if a softball were to play on that field, they can't play on a grass infield. Softball isn't played on a grass infield, it's not played with a mound like baseball is, so in order to accommodate that, you would need a different infield. Whether it's all dirt or whether it's synthetic would be the options. So that will come, as part of the discussion. You know, whether or not this is allowed, it definitely is not something that they get to just do. But I didn't want you to read in a press release that there's a potential of this softball team coming here without giving you an update that they are in conversations with us. It will take a lot of work. If it's a discussion, it would not happen any sooner than 2024, and it would come through this committee. I'm sure the historical committee would want to look at it as well, with whether the grass qualifies for that. But it also is a unique use in the city. It's a growing, women's softball is a hugely growing sport. We have very large youth softball in this community as well. So it's a kind of a neat opportunity, but there is definitely conversations to come with it, and possible changes of whether or not it would even work. The clubhouse is a big discussion part of it. So that's that update. Just some park updates for you. It's not touch screen. One of the projects we had in our small project fund was to replace the listening loop at the 400 block. This is for those that are hearing impaired, to be able to listen to information or concerts on the stage. It has been installed, and it's currently getting its final tweaks to it, and then it'll be up and running. So that is there, an upgraded system.
Alder Larson?
Thanks again, Madam Chair. I had, earlier last year, Ms. Polly, we had talked about the grouting on the stage, how it was decaying and staining the concrete that below it and stuff, and I was just wondered if that issue has been taken care of.
We did look at it, and it's actually the caulking that's in there. So we were having staff kind of trying to remove some of the caulking, and the caulking is what's bleeding down. And then they were doing some patching where we could, and trying to make it look as good as we could. It really wasn't the grouting. So we did look at it. I believe it's been addressed, but I have to go back and look at it. But it's on the list, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
And then we have cracks in the big columns on the stage. That had come forward to the city council for approval to move forward with that fix, and that will be done at the end of September. I went to the whitewater kayaking competition the weekend of August 20th. Alder Lukens and Alder Herbst were there as well to kind of see their ceremony celebrating their 9 years of improvement. So they had a pretty good turnout, and recognized some different people for the help that they've given. It was 9 years of completion of the work, but it was an 18-year plan that they got done in 9 years, so they were pretty proud of that work. We are working with the Wausau Police Department to install a light at Bullfald Park at their request. This will help with the monitoring that's down there and the whole system that we have. and safety concerns. And then Wausau pools, we're winterizing those, and we will have an update. This was asked at the last meeting, not knowing if we're having this meeting or not, and Mark just had a baby this week, 2 weeks early, so he did not get me the final numbers. We will have that end of the season report at the next meeting to give to you. Riverside Park remediation, you've already approved it as city council, so I'm just reminding you that this was on the August 10th city council meeting for you to approve the funding that goes with the preliminary work that Mr. Lindman had recommended to do some preliminary work in order for them to put a better bid package together to do the actual remediation work, so.
Alder Killian?
Thank you. Just one question there. I know that I've heard there'll be some kind of composite testing of the soil to see if if it's suitable to be landfilled, and I think that'll be a public record they provide to the DNR. But once they have those soil results, could they also be provided to the committee?
I can ask Mr. Lindman, those have all gone to him, so I'll just pass that request on.
Thank you.
Are there any other items that you would like to see put on the agenda for the, I'm
Wait,
sorry.
I got so this is only on the Parks Committee agenda because of the potential that it could affect Schofield Park. The Parks Committee is not, it's an informational item to just give you an update that it's not to talk about the easement because this does not, it's not a park issue at this point. The easement is not through the park. That's being discussed next week, so that is completely separate. What I wanted to bring forward and working with our city attorney's office is just the information item that WPS has a current easement right now along Schofield Park that has high wire lines there. If they don't get the easement on Randolph and Burke approved, which is the only one that's in question near the park, and that's the only thing I'm addressing here, is that they have the option to use their current easement. And if they can, I did not get anything, they did not have the study completed as of this afternoon, but I was informed that the study is to put the wires on the monopoles that are out there. So if that is done, then there'll be no impact to the park at all, and it'll be as it is today. It'll be exactly the same as it is today. If the monopoles can't support the wires that are going on there, and they choose to use that easement, then they may have to use guide wires for those poles, which they, in discussions with WPS, the guide wires don't impact the park play per se, that the easement is wide enough that our ball fields aren't impacted, our trails aren't impacted, nothing like that. What it does impact is our maintenance, because we now have to mow around guide wires. But they have an easement, and they have that ability to use that easement within that park. So that is all this is talking to. I don't have any other information on any of this line, and it's not for this committee to discuss because it's not park issues, but it could be if guide wires are, well, it's not really a park issue if guide wires are used, it's just a informational item that they have the right to use that current easement within the park, and we will just have to mow around it if they have to use guide wires. So that's something that will be, I'm sure, discussed when they talk about the whole thing at the city council meeting, but I was made aware that Schofield Park has that current easement that could potentially be used.
Okay. Thank you very, very much, Jamie. Any comments or questions for Jamie? Well,
Am I allowed to say anything? I thought Lou said I could speak at this point.
Well, you gave your comments at the beginning of the meeting.
I did, but there's something more I just received via an email.
If it has to do with the park, then
It
you
does.
can say it, but if it
does.
doesn't, it's not
It
our
has to
issue.
do with the easement. My attorney has copied Ann Jacobs.
You need to come to the microphone.
My attorney has contacted Ann Jacobson, City of Wausau Council, to review this because this is not an existing easement. They're requesting a new easement. They're going to replace an old easement with this new easement. So
That is what the request is. The request is to replace their current easement with the new easement that goes across Randolph and Burke and doesn't go in the park at all.
Correct.
If that is denied, then they can use their existing easement and they will not abandon it. So that is
Well,
what this
that's-
informational item is for.
That's currently under review. My understanding from the email I just received, that's what I was looking at while this other conversations were going on. She's reviewing the old easement, the new easement they're requesting, and the easement supposedly that they have to put the guide wires, whatever they're called, in Schofield Park. But the whole issue comes down to, I'd like to use the sunshine law to shine the light of day on the skullduggery they used on Campus Drive.
Well, this is for the park, so I have to
Okay.
keep it at the park. This is
Yeah.
what the Parks
All
Committee
right.
is responsible for.
Okay, well then I'll be here September 13th for the city council meeting.
Yeah, the rest will be discussed at the city council meeting, but you are correct, they're requesting this new easement. If the new easement is denied, then, and this is not for, we're not attorneys, this is for them to figure out, but they do have a current easement that they can use.
Well, right, and so it seems like they're trying to do a workaround with this and still ram it down the throats of Campus Drive. That's my opinion, and that's an opinion shared by Lisa Rasmussen, District 7
Well, this is
City
to
Alderperson.
talk, I'm sorry, this is to talk about the park, and it's only an informational
All right.
item, so this is just for information that we have wires in Schofield Park, and the easement is there currently. How
Okay.
they work it and all of that, that's not really for this committee.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie, for all your information. Just to let the rest of the alders know, our next meeting date is Monday, October 3rd at 4:30 PM. And I will take a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting. Motion by Alder Killian, second by Alder Lukens. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Motion passed, meeting adjourned. Thank you and have a great week.
Forward to my son's football game. Sorry, Don, I didn't mean to jump in there.
No, that's fine. Wait a minute.
Night.